Truth, we know, is universal. It must be. 2 plus 2 is 4 in China. 2 plus 2 is 4 in Moscow. 2 plus 2 is 4 in Timbuktu. 2 plus 2 is 4 in Athens, Georgia. Truth is universal. Truth cannot be invented. It can only be observed and reported. Scientific socialism is a truth. Of course, in our compilation of knowledge, in our attempts to help assist ourselves remember things, sometimes for the sake of remembrance, we may become a little bit sloppy about precision. Let me give you an example of what I speak. We may call the laws of gravity Newton's laws. That is to say, we refer to them commonly as Newton's laws. Newton cannot invent that a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless stopped by an outside force. He cannot invent this. The best that Newton can do is to observe it, and the best we can do is to know that he might have been the first man to have recorded it, written or oral. But certainly, as a baby, I knew that a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless stopped by an outside force when I ran into an object. I say we call it Newton's law, but Newton couldn't invent it. He observed it. So too, we come to confuse socialism sometimes, and the capitalist system, wherever we make mistakes, will aid us in our mistakes. Aid us in our mistakes. Aid us to make them bigger, that is. Yeah. We come to see socialism sometimes as belonging to Marx, or belonging to Engels, or belonging to the Russians, or belonging to the Chinese. Not at all. Just as the laws of gravity cannot belong to Newton, so too the laws of socialism cannot belong to Marx. They cannot belong to Engels. The best that they can do is to properly observe these laws and record them. The best we can do is say, these are people who were the first we know to have recorded socialism or concepts and precepts of socialism. Socialism is a universal truth. Its principles are, 1, that the people must own and control the means of production. Number 2, the system must be planned properly, and there must be all scientific and technique data used to improve it. Power must come from the people and be emanated by the people. I'm coming. That is to say that socialism in Russia, socialism in China, socialism in Europe, socialism in Africa must be the same like 2 plus 2. It may look different. Its manifestations will be different. There are different cultures. The culture of China is not the culture of Africa. Because they're different cultures doesn't mean that they're automatically antagonistic to each other. Not at all. The culture of Europe, the culture of Africa are different cultures. Therefore, the manifestation of socialism in Africa, the manifestation of socialism in China, the manifestation of socialism in Russia will be different. But the essence will be the same, as it is with 2 plus 2. If we went to China and we wanted to see 2 plus 2 is 4, they will do 2 plus 2 is 4 for us on the abacus board. If we go to Africa and we ask for 2 plus 2 is 4, they will do 2 plus 2 is 4 for us with the kauri beads. If we go to Russia and we ask for 2 plus 2, they may give us 2 plus 2 is 4 with wheat grain. They're different manifestations, but the essence is the same. The truth is there. Therefore, we in Africa must fight for scientific socialism. Those in Russia must fight for scientific socialism. And just since no one has a monopoly on socialism, it is not to be assumed that any one country will be the first to arrive at socialism. That one must be clear. And also, since no one has a monopoly on socialism, it cannot be assumed that if one country moves forward and makes mistakes and falls back and even seems to be revising its stand, that's no reason for us to be discouraged. On the contrary, we hold stronger to truth.
Yeah, my name is James Glover from Toledo, Ohio, and I would like to ask Tim, do he think blacks in America will ever have equal rights here in this country?
Yes, we will have it in this country, but of course, before we do that, Africa must be the strong power that she is so that we'll be respected. But there's no question we will have equal rights in every country. There will be equal rights in every country all over the world for all people. There's no question of this.
You seem so sure.
I'm positive.
Okay. Do you see any kind of a scenario or any kind of a timetable?
Well, no. I can't give you a timetable. That I cannot do.
Well, let's say in your lifetime?
No, probably not in my lifetime. We will not see it. But I've seen a lot in my lifetime now.
Yes.
I didn't think, for example, in my lifetime that I would see Zimbabwe independent. And as early as 1962, we were doing sit-ins in Washington, D.C. at the then Rhodesian embassy. And I didn't think at that time that I would see it independent. It's independent today.
I've seen great strides made by the Palestinians in their struggle against Zionism, which I didn't think that I would see in my lifetime. So I'm seeing quite a bit. Yeah, I'm seeing in Central America the peasants in El Salvador, Nicaragua stand up for their rights, and I didn't think I would see this in my lifetime. So I'm seeing quite a lot in my lifetime.
Certainly, one cannot speak of morality when one is speaking to capitalism. It is an immoral system. It has no conscience. It knows only its own interest. It will commit genocide to take land from the red man. It will commit slavery to enrich itself. It will drop napalm bombs on babies in Vietnam. Consequently, when we come to talk of advancing ourselves through power, we must come to speak of just that, power. And we must understand that the only place we find power is through the organized masses. Simply put, until the masses of our people are organized, we will remain powerless and thus the victims of all vicious powers that seek to exploit us. The question of morality, of course, must not be put aside, no. But it is clear that any struggling people struggling for justice are already struggling for a moral struggle. Consequently here, the question of morality doesn't lay with them, but with the enemy who seeks to keep them oppressed. We must then understand clearly that when we look for power in the 90s, when we struggle in the 90s to advance ourselves, we must struggle only based on our own power, the power of the ability to organize our people. Of course, we said that we advance only through mass struggle, and that is clear. Consequently, we must come to understand that it is only through mass organization and conscious mass struggle that we will properly arrive at our liberation in a planned manner. This leads to another point which must be clear, the questions of coalitions. The 1960s, of course, made many errors with coalitions. Here, we believe that political coalitions could be made based on sentiment. Somebody said they feel the way we do, and consequently we come to organize them. The history, of course, of our people shows that this cannot be the case. If one would go back to the history of the South in this country, immediately after the Civil War, there arose at that time a party known as the Populist Party. One of the leaders of the Populist Party was a man by the name of Tom Watson, a white man from Georgia. Watson came after the Civil War to tell the Africans that the rich white man, he exploits the poor white man and the poor African. And consequently, what we need to do is to join an alliance against the rich white man. Well, you know us Africans, we just love anything anybody. We just ran into the party. We filled the party of the Populists. We did work for the Populists. We were everywhere in the Populist Party. After the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, when the government decided to give the South back to the slave masters, Tom Watson became a member of the Ku Klux Klan and drove us out of the Populist Party. What was the error? The error was that as a force we were not independently organized, thus not even knowing our own power. We went in as individuals into the party, thus they could chase us out. Examples are to be found everywhere. The struggle of the labor movements in this country is certainly instructive. If one would look at the struggle for labor unions in this country, one would find that Africans have everywhere played a role out of proportion to their numbers. If you look at labor unions today, they are racist from top to bottom. What was the error? Africans came to enter the unions without being first an organized force. The 60s then come here. We were told that we had coalitions with groups I've never heard of, the labor union. We had interests with the church groups, all of them. They were all for our interest. Of course, the error was that some Africans thought that the interest of America was the same as the interest of us. Of course, the job of the system, the job of the enemy is to confuse you and to let you think that your interest and your history is the same as that of your oppressor. As a matter of fact, the job of the master is to convince the slave that the master is really concerned about the interests of the slave. And if the master doesn't do well, the slave will be in trouble. Any slave who believes that he has the same interests as a master will pick cotton at night. All slaves must understand that their interests are diametrically opposed to the interests of the master. Not only are they diametrically opposed, they are antagonisms to each other. What is good for the master is bad for the slave. What's bad for the master is good for the slave. Of course, we said that even the people instinctively understand this, and the 60s come to clarify the point clearly. Of course, if you would look at the 60s, you would see at the height of the struggle for human rights, there came to be some confusion here with the war in Vietnam. The people always see clearly. Instinctively, the people understood, the African masses, that they had to be against the war in Vietnam. There was no question here. But it was in just expression of this
position against the war in Vietnam that one came to see that in order to have coalitions, one must really have coalitions based on interest. I am not even talking here of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was really the radical cutting wing of the movement of the 60s, and which was the first one to take a position against the war in Vietnam. Indeed, it did not take a position for peace. It took an anti-imperialist position. It said clearly it wanted the Vietnamese to win, and the way it was going to do that was to demobilize the Americans by not having an army. Thus, the slogan which SNCC gave to them was a simple one: hell no, we won't go. Simple as that. And that simple slogan, of course, came to cause splits within these coalition forces. The labor unions who walked hands in hands with us for struggles, all of a sudden were for the Vietnam War against us. The church itself had to step back. Obviously here, we didn't understand what we were fighting for. We thought we were fighting for freedom. And Dr. Martin Luther King said it all the time: freedom is indivisible. As a matter of fact, he used to say all the time, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Consequently, if there's injustice in Vietnam, I'm stupid thinking I'm sitting in America not to think that it affects me. If there's injustice in Vietnam, I better go cut it down before it comes to find me. Consequently, since Africans, assuming that justice was indivisible and began to move everywhere against injustice, they came up against contradictions with those whom they made coalitions around the question of the war in Vietnam. We only use it here as a clear example. Africans cannot form coalitions until they themselves are organized and know exactly what their interests are. Thus, there's no need for us to talk now about coalition with anybody because we are a disorganized people. First, we must become organized. It is for this reason that we're held in such contempt by the Democratic Party, because inside the Democratic Party, we are a disorganized people, even inside there, with one fighting against the other, simply because we have not organized ourselves properly. It is for this reason that they will give us somebody and make us think that we picked them just because he looks like us.
The people all over the world hate the American people. They hate you. And what is pathetic about it is that you don't even know why they hate you, and you think they shouldn't be hating you. But if you examine it, they have every reason to be hating you because you are irresponsible to humanity. Look at the people in Iran. The guns that are used against those people are paid for with your tax dollars. The guns that are used to oppress these people, impose a Shah, is paid for with your tax dollars. Your tax dollars is helping to crush humanity. I say you must take some responsibility. Everything in the world relates to everything else. Everything is interconnected to everything else. You're students, you have a responsibility. You are students and you have a responsibility to see the truth and advocate the truth and not be afraid of it. That's the least we can ask you to do. After all, you come to seek knowledge. Or for what purposes do you come to seek knowledge? So you too can learn how to better exploit the poor? You don't have to come to college for that. You can be ruthless easily. Of course. Of course. Of course, they might just teach you in college how to make it appear as if you're not ruthless. Oh, they can do it. Some people are talking about Mr. Rockefeller. They say he's a philanthropist. I know him to be a pig, a thief, a plunderer, and a rapist. They can confuse you if you're not careful. As a young man brought up in the West Indies, in the Caribbean where I was born, I was told that Cecil Rhodes was a philanthropist. Yes. He even gives Rhodes a scholarship. Yes, they even told me, if you're good, you too can get one. Yes. I say, if you're not careful, they will confuse you.
When they come up against a wall, there's going to be a serious explosion in this country. That explosion cannot be a repetition of the 60s. Indeed, history never repeats itself, even though bourgeois scholars never stop harping this song. Nothing repeats itself. People, however, can repeat their mistakes, yes. And of course, once you repeat a mistake, it is more grave than the first time around. The lessons then must be clear. There is no question, and you must in no way lose faith in the masses of the people. It is they and they alone who make revolution, not their petty bourgeois spokesmen who betray them everywhere. And the conditions of the masses are worse today than they were in the 60s. These masses must have changed and will have changed by any means necessary.
Before we begin again, you see, I have to waste so much time because of this press. Now, I'm concerned about Africans. I'm concerned about black people. Now, many people say to me, when they see me, they say, Mr. Carmichael, incidentally, my name has been changed to Kwame Ture. They can say, Kwame Ture,
we understand that you are just concerned about making black people better. And I say, yes, in a way I am. And they said, well, if that's the case, you are a racist. And I said, no, you are the racist. You see, Africans are part of humanity. They are an oppressed part of humanity. If I benefit an oppressed part of humanity and free it, obviously I have benefited all of humanity, since humanity is indivisible. You understand it? So let there be no confusion.
That's when he comes even to talk about Africa, he's ashamed of Africa. Why? Like the man who hates communism, he knows nothing about it. It's the same process, you see. For us, it's a little bit tighter. It has to be. It has to be. But it's the same thing. You'll find a man the other day, I said to him, my brother, you African? I ain't no African. Blacker than me. I wasn't born in Africa. All right. If you were born on a ship, what would you be? I don't know nothing about Africa, of course. When you're born, you don't know nothing about nothing. It's only when you learn something about something that you learn something. You know about America. You didn't born learning about America. You don't know Africa because they don't teach you anything about Africa. Yes, of course not. But it's your responsibility to learn about Africa. We do not just want to clap when we show clearly and expose the nature of the problem. We want more enthusiastic clap for the solution, because that's how the problem will be solved. Yes. If the university doesn't teach you anything about Africa and you don't know anything about Africa, it's your fault. Double times your fault. You're stupid in the first place for thinking they're going to teach you about it, and double foolish in the second place for not doing something about it. Now, to make people think in America is an extremely difficult job. It is. The difficulty arises from the fact that since we live in a capitalist system which seeks to exploit the people and therefore keep the people confused, the capitalist system makes the people think they're thinking when in fact they are not thinking. See, and it is extremely difficult to convince someone who thinks he's thinking that he's not thinking. Is it? But we must do it. It's our responsibility. Let me give you an example of how the American people think they think but don't think. If we took a poll of the American people and asked them what they thought about communism, would you agree with me that at least 90% of the people we ask in America would be against communism? 90%? And if we ask this 90% what is communism, would you agree with me that less than 0.2% can probably give us an intelligent, though not necessarily correct answer? Would you agree with me with this? Now let me ask you a question just between you and I. If you have an enemy, does it behoove you to know the enemy or not to know the enemy? That is to say, for example, if snakes are your enemy, does it behoove you to know at least what they look like or not to know what they look like? You understand the proposition carefully. So we want to prove that they think they're thinking, but they're not thinking. Listen to this. The man or woman who hates communism the most is the man or woman who knows the least about communism. And what is even tragic is that the man or woman who hates communism the most, that is to say, the man or woman who knows the least about communism, is the man or woman who wants to know the least about communism. That is to say, snakes are my enemies. They come to bite me, and I don't even want to know what they look like. It's a stupid system. Because the system is based on exploitation, it confuses the people so that it uses the people for its further exploitation. Thus, the pigs who run the capitalist system come and yell, the communists are coming. The people grab the guns. Where? Panama. They go shoot. The communists are coming. Where? Santo Domingo. They grab guns. They go shoot. The communists are coming. Where? Vietnam. They grab guns. They go shoot. They don't know what the hell they're fighting and are not even concerned with finding out. That's a stupid system. The final point, then, you must not become confused by the American capitalist system, which holds up betrayers of the people's struggle as representatives of the people. In any army in the world, if you desert, you should get shot. It's a law. Certainly you must be shot.
And if you volunteer for an army, you should be shot twice. Of course. Of course. You volunteer for the People's Army. The people go to fight. They're ready to fight. You say, I'm leaving. What do you mean you're leaving? But if you will look at our struggle since the 60s, you will see nothing but betrayals by the petty bourgeois elements in our society. The African bourgeoisie is the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world. In Africa, they seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering. There are more Mercedes in Africa than in any other continent in the world. In America, as soon as they arrive at a position based on this blood of the people, they snatch that position and run away from the people. But you must not think that they represent the people. They only represent their opportunistic self, using the people every step of the way. So you must not be confused.
Yeah, this is John. I'm calling from Long Island, New York. I knew Stokely back in PS 83 and Bronx High School of Science. And I wanted to ask him, one, I wanted to tell him that the years have been kinder to him than to me. Also, what does he see down the road for my children, and if he has children, his? I am white. I'd mention my last name if he thinks he'd remember it.
Well, it's good to know from you. That's a long way to go all the way back to PS 83. Well, I see a better world for both your children and for my children, a much better world. We make progress. It's slow, but we make progress. And once humanity has made progress, they cannot be forced backwards. So I see, of course, constant progress, better civilization. If all this generation, my generation, can do is to move from here to here, let's do that perfectly. Let's lay a perfect foundation so that the children who come after us will be able to carry on the struggle that much further. We're not going to win this struggle today. We're not going to win it tomorrow. This is a struggle. This is a long struggle. We're fighting a struggle that has been taking place for 500 years, and even way beyond that. We're just a small part of that struggle, a very small part, and we cannot see ourselves as the most important part. Our generation is no more important than my father's generation, which is no more important than my grandfather's generation, and all these generations have struggled and waged fierce struggles. I mean, anytime people get real smart and say, we're not going anywhere, I say, hey, man, think about your grandfather. He was a slave. White boy was whooping him every day. Now look where you are. See how we're moving. Don't get upset. Let's just take our time, take our patience, understand that we have to find what our mission is, what the mission of this generation is, and do that, and do it perfect, properly, correctly, thoroughly, and completely. And then the other's going to take care of the rest. Let's leave some for the children.
You must study your history. You must be responsible. You are students and you don't even read. How stupid. I tell you, anything you get your hands on, read. I tell you, read. Instead of boogalooing so much, read. Instead of playing bizwiz so much, read. You might learn something. And the more you know, the better able you are to serve humanity. You must read. We say we must organize the people. We come to get those Africans who are conscious. But we have a responsibility to all people. Revolution based on truth is universal. If it benefits one sector of humanity, it benefits all sectors of humanity. Thus, we say the Africans must organize. But we say that the white poor must organize even more than the Africans, because the white poor is exploited and is not even conscious of their exploitation. It's a vicious system. It is a vicious system. Thus, the white student sitting here has really a responsibility upon his or her back if, in fact, they are conscious human beings. The challenge, of course, is a great challenge, but life without a challenge wouldn't be life. My father used to tell me, son, the harder the battle, the sweeter the victory. I don't want any easy task in life. That doesn't benefit anything. I want to be tested to the limit of my capacities, and if it's for the benefit of humanity, test me. Test me.
In Africa, the religion of Judaism and Zionism must be, the religion of Judaism and the political philosophy of Zionism must be completely separated. Judaism is a religion. As an African, I'm very proud of this religion because it was given to the world by my people. Judaism began in Africa. We must be clear here. Of course, forces seeking everywhere to stalk nonsense will make it appear as if Africa didn't give Judaism to the world, but others came from the outside and gave it to Africa. This is nonsense, bourgeois lies, and racist manipulation against Africa. Africa gave monotheism to the world, belief in one God. And at the time that Africa gave monotheism to the world, belief in one God, every other area surrounding Africa were believing in cows, were believing in moons, were believing in the sun. It was Africa and Africa alone that gave monotheism to the world. That is why Judaism had to be born in Africa. It presented the proper conditions for Judaism to be born there. The question, we want to make it clear, Judaism was given to the world by Africa. This is clear and undeniable fact. Those who wish to look at the history and we can develop it, look. Zionism is a political philosophy. It did not come out of Africa. The first organizational conference of Zionism, if my memory serves me correctly, was in 1897 in a place called Bâle, Switzerland. B-A-L-S-E. The reason why this meeting had to be held in Bâle, Switzerland was because the majority of Orthodox Jewry in Europe was against Zionism, totally against it. We must look properly at Zionism, its beginning, and its founder, a man by the name of Theodor Herzl, H-E-R-Z-L. Mr. Herzl was, of course, bourgeois from his toes to his top of his head. He was bourgeois. As bourgeois as you can get. He didn't think about the proletarian. As a matter of fact, Mr. Herzl himself was not a religious person. It's extremely important. And we want to read his diary. He himself says that he's an atheist. You must understand the word properly. An atheist does not just not believe in God. An atheist makes the affirmative statement that God does not exist. Thus, Mr. Herzl is an atheist. I could never understand, until this day it is incomprehensible for me to understand. How is it that Zionism, a political philosophy, born thousands of miles away from Judaism, one born in Africa, the other in Europe, born thousands of years different from Africa, thousands of years of difference, Judaism thousands of years ago, Zionism 1897. And how is it that they can link each other together? And according to the philosophy of Zionism, that they feel that somehow that they have some relationship to Judaism and this promised state that God promised his chosen people. Mr. Herzl did not believe in God. Not only did not believe in God, he said that God did not exist. Now, he who tells me that God does not exist sets out to find a place that God promised to his chosen people. If this is not ludicrous, and this is the basis, of course, of Zionism.
Socialism, so I adhere also to socialism. I know the socialist economic system is the only system that will solve the unjustness that's to be found in a capitalist system.
Do you think that black Americans can continue, do you believe that black Americans can continue under the current governmental system that we have here in the United States today? Or do you think that some sort of upheaval will have to take place and changes be made?
Well, outside of the government structure, systematically speaking, there must be an upheaval. The capitalist system is in grave crisis. And every time the capitalist system finds itself in crisis, its solution is war. It comes out of it by war. Today, that's going to be a little bit difficult. The peoples around the world, their consciousness has risen. Therefore, they are fighting back. And in America, those who will be called to go and fight, their consciousness has also risen because of Vietnam notwithstanding. So that it will become a little bit more difficult and the problems are going to rise. And the only way to solve the problems is by taking away from the rich that which they have no right to have and equally distributing it among all the people in the society.
Let me just go to Mr. Ture here. In the 1960s, as I said before, you were one of the ardent proponents of using the term black. How do you feel now about abandoning it in favor of African American?
Well, I do not even use the term African American. I use the term Africans because that's what we are. We're Africans in America. There's nothing American about us. Our history has only been a history of struggle in America. We are the only ethnic group in America who have to shed our blood to make reform. To get the vote, we must shed our blood. To get our children to school, we must shed our blood. To get on a bus and sit where we want, we must shed our blood. To even get in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store, we must shed our blood. So I don't see how we could be American. We're Africans in America struggling against American capitalism. And only until it's destroyed will we enjoy the rights that everyone else is speaking of.
Well, we thank you. One more question, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to state an opinion. You said that capitalism is backwards and it should be destroyed. Stupid,
reactionary,
repulsive.
and barbaric. No, I didn't use the word repulsive. That's too mild.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to state my opinion that I think violence is barbaric and stupid and repulsive, and that's my opinion.
But please, may I ask you a question, please? Just for clarification. All right, now, I'm not sure, are you agreeing that capitalism is bad or you don't think it's bad?
I didn't say.
Huh?
I didn't say anything about it.
But what do you think about it?
Capitalism?
Yes.
Well,
well, let me ask you this question.
I live in a capitalist society.
Okay, let me make it easier. Let me make it easier.
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah.
If you were a slave and I were your master,
I'd
and
hate
the
you.
only way for you to be free was to strike your blow to kill me, what would you do? You didn't answer? Oh. I didn't hear him answer.
Someone can hide the truth, but if you look for it, you'll find it. The only way you will not find the truth is if you do not look for the truth. We can give examples everywhere. Some years ago, when at Spelman College, around the time when Martin Luther King's birthday had just become a holiday, I had the opportunity to speak at Spelman College. You know, those sisters were fired up. You know, Martin Luther King's birthday had just come. I mean, and they were out there. When I walked in, it was wall-to-wall Africans, and they were excited. I asked them a question. How many of you love Martin Luther King? Put your hands up. I mean, some put both hands up. And I asked them a simple question. Keep your hands up if you have read one book by Dr. Martin Luther King. Oh, Brother Kwame, we love him. They don't even read about King. All they know about King is what they get off of television, and the television can only give you sound bites at best. The other young student came running to me and said, oh, you know, it was Dr. King's birthday recently. I said, yes. He said, you know, I almost know his speech. I have a dream by heart. I said, that's excellent. He said, do you know it's the best speech that Dr. King ever gave? I told him, keep quiet. You must not spread ignorance, especially among an oppressed people. Anyone who knows anything about Dr. King knows that one of his most mediocre speeches is I Have a Dream speech. That's right. I commend one other speech to you if you really want to see Dr. King. It's called Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam. It is here that you will come to see truly something about Dr. King. I want to give you examples so you can see what your responsibility is. You must not think that the enemy will ever come, or anybody will ever come and give you instructions on your struggle. It is only you yourself who must find the thread of your struggle. It is your responsibility to understand the resistance of your struggle and to make your contribution to your struggle. When they get through with Dr. King's interpretation, since we don't read him or study him or analyze him, they make you believe that the greatest contribution Dr. King made to his people was nonviolence. And they call him a creative genius. Can you imagine that? That means that all Dr. King did with nonviolence was to take that from Mahatma Gandhi and adapt it to the situation in the United States. A genius doesn't have to do this. Why, even George Bush can do that. But Dr. King certainly was a creative genius. And his contribution to us was not nonviolence. Matter of fact, when they get through with him, he sounds like Martin Luther, nonviolent King. King's greatest contribution to us as a people was he taught us how to confront the enemy without fear. Right. When you properly understand this, then you will properly come to understand the real contribution that Martin Luther King made to his people. I would see him come into a town. All the signs were segregated. The Africans there were trembling when they saw white people. If they were walking on the sidewalk and the white person was coming, they have to get off the sidewalk, take off their hat and say, yes, sir, I have seen this in my life. I've seen these people come trembling, and Dr. King come to the town and said, we're going to change everything here. Oh, Dr. King, please don't talk too loud. He said, no, we're going to change everything here. We're going to turn these signs upside down. Oh, no, Dr. King, these white folk down here, they're too mean. He said, no, we're going to mobilize everybody. Dr. King, we ain't got no way. And Dr. King would look at him and say, my God is a mighty God. He'd make a way out of no way. And this same Dr. King would take these same people who were afraid of white people just 2 weeks later, and you will see 8-year-old girls, 82-year-old women getting up, facing dogs, facing fire hoses, facing cattle prods, facing batons, facing horses, getting knocked down and getting up and going again with nothing in their hands except the righteous belief of the righteousness of their cause and nonviolence as their tactic. Dr. King would take the same man who was scared of white folks and have the same man face them with all the weapons in their hands, and this man had nothing but the conviction of the correctness of his cause. Dr. King is a great man. You must know precisely his greatness. I tell all the people in the world, I lay all the rebellions in this country at the feet of Dr. Martin Luther King. Of course. When Dr. King taught me how to face white people without guns, and they had all the guns, it didn't take nothing for me to pick up a gun and face them.
Have you been arrested? Have you got a rifle? Have you gone down in the streets of Newark and sniped from the windows with all the kids who are starving?
Yeah, I was arrested before I came here for inciting to riot because I tried to kill a cop.
Yeah, but did you have a rifle?
I always got my stuff with me.
I don't mind you advocating violence if you take the risks. The only risk you have is of becoming a martyr.
Wait, don't put up stuff.
I am, let me talk about Cecil Rhodes. My good man. Hey, Ted. When Cecil Rhodes said white power and the only culture is white culture, did you get up and give him a tongue lashing like you gave the man who said black culture? Did you talk to him? Did you tell him he was crazy and insane? Did you try?
Before my time.
Oh, he died before your time. What about the British troops that are killing people in Aden? What are you doing to stop that? They're here in your time. Are you stopping it? How? Where are you stopping it? What about the British troops that are killing people in Hong Kong because they've taken their land and talk some bullshit about leasing it for 7 years? What are you doing to stop them? What are you doing to stop them? What about the United States of America with all of its violence in Vietnam? What are you doing? You haven't done a goddamn thing to stop white violence, have you? Have you? Have you? Have you?